Kola and Toby sat under the old palm tree in their high school compound, sharing a plate of roasted plantains. Kola, the brainy one, was explaining a complex math problem to Toby, who listened intently despite his struggles with academics. Toby, on the other hand, was the one who could turn Kola's ideas into reality. He was the one who built the science project that won them first prize in the state competition. Their friendship was a perfect blend of brains and brawn, and everyone admired their synergy. But little did they know, life had bigger plans for them, plans that would test their bond in ways they could never imagine. After graduation, Kola and Toby found themselves in a tough job market. Despite their qualifications, no company seemed to value their potential. One evening, as they sat in Kola's tiny apartment, Toby suggested they start their own business. Kola was hesitant at first, but Toby's enthusiasm was contagious. They pooled their savings, which amounted to just 100,000 naira, and started a small tech repair shop. Kola handled the technical side, while Toby managed the customers and logistics. Within months, their business grew, and they began to dream bigger. They promised each other that no matter what, they would always have each other's backs. 10 years later, Kola and Toby's business had grown into a multimillion naira empire. They had expanded into software development, real estate, and even agriculture. Their success was the talk of the town, and everyone wanted a piece of their magic. But with success came envy. Old friends and acquaintances began to approach them for favors, and some even tried to drive a wedge between them. Despite the challenges, Kola and Toby remained inseparable, until one fateful day when a familiar face from their past reappeared. It was at a high school reunion that they met Deji, their junior from back in the day. Deji had always been the charming, manipulative type, but Kola and Toby didn't see the danger. Deji quickly ingratiated himself into their lives, offering to help with their business. At first, his ideas seemed brilliant, but soon cracks began to appear in Kola and Toby's relationship. Deji would whisper doubts into Kola's ear about Toby's decisions and vice versa. Slowly but surely, the trust between the two friends began to erode. Kola and Toby had their first major argument over a business deal. Kola wanted to invest in a new tech startup, while Toby thought it was too risky. Deji, who was present at the meeting, subtly took sides, fueling the tension. The argument escalated, and for the first time in their friendship, they walked away from each other without resolving the issue. That night, Kola lay awake, wondering if their friendship could survive the pressures of success. Deji's manipulation reached its peak when he forged documents to make it seem like Toby was embezzling company funds. Kola, already stressed and overworked, believed the lie. He confronted Toby, and the resulting fight was explosive. Toby, hurt and betrayed, walked away from the business, leaving Kola to deal with the fallout. But as Toby left, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Without Toby's practical skills, the business began to crumble. Kola tried to keep things afloat, but the weight of his mistakes was too much to bear. Deji, seeing the chaos, made his move and took over the company, leaving Kola with nothing. Devastated and alone, Kola realized too late that he had been played. He reached out to Toby, but the damage was done. Their friendship, once unbreakable, was now a distant memory. Kola and Toby went their separate ways, each carrying the weight of their lost friendship. Kola struggled to rebuild his life, while Toby threw himself into a new venture, determined to prove he didn't need Kola to succeed. But deep down, both men missed the bond they once shared. The question lingered in their minds. Could they ever find a friend like each other again? Years later, Kola and Toby crossed paths at a charity event. The encounter was awkward at first, but as they talked, they realized how much they had missed each other. They decided to meet for coffee, and over the course of several meetings, they began to rebuild their friendship. But the scars of the past still lingered, and they both wondered if they could truly trust each other again. After their awkward encounter at the charity event, Kola and Toby part ways once more. This time, there's no talk of reconciliation or starting over. Kola throws himself into a quiet life, working as a consultant for small businesses, while Toby channels his energy into community projects, helping underprivileged youth. Though they're no longer in each other's lives, they can't shake the feeling that something is missing. The question lingers. Can they ever truly move on from what they lost? Kola sits alone in his small apartment, scrolling through old photos of him and Toby. He remembers the laughter, the dreams, and the bond they once shared. The regret is overwhelming, but he convinces himself that it's too late to fix things. Meanwhile, Toby is at a community center, teaching a group of kids how to build a small robot. One of the kids asks him, "Do you have a best friend?" Toby hesitates, then smiles sadly. "I used to," he says. Deji, now a wealthy but lonely man, hears rumors that Kola and Toby have crossed paths again. Fearing they might expose his past manipulations, he decides to take preemptive action. He begins spreading lies about Kola and Toby in the business community, tarnishing their reputations. Kola and Toby, still not speaking to each other, are unaware of the storm brewing around them. Kola loses a major client due to the rumors Deji has spread. Frustrated and angry, he confronts Deji at a networking event. The confrontation turns physical, and Kola is arrested. News of the incident reaches Toby, who is torn between helping his old friend and staying out of the mess. Ultimately, he decides to visit Kola in jail, but the meeting is tense and unproductive. While in jail, Kola has a vivid dream about the early days of his friendship with Toby. He wakes up with a renewed sense of clarity and realizes how much he's lost. Meanwhile, Toby begins to question his own choices. He wonders if he's been too stubborn, too proud to forgive. Both men are on the brink of change, but neither knows how to take the first step. A mutual friend from high school passes away, and Kola and Toby are both invited to the funeral. Seeing each other again in such a somber setting forces them to confront their unresolved feelings. They exchange a few words, but the tension is palpable. After the funeral, they both leave with a heavy heart, knowing that life is too short to hold on to grudges. Kola decides to reach out to Toby. He sends a simple text. "Can we talk?" Toby reads the message but doesn't reply immediately. He's torn between his desire to reconnect and his fear of being hurt again. After a sleepless night, he finally responds, "Meet me at the old mango tree." Kola and Toby meet under the old mango tree where their friendship began. The conversation is awkward at first, but as they talk, they begin to open up about their regrets and mistakes. They don't reconcile immediately, but they agree to keep in touch. It's a small step, but it's a start. Kola and Toby begin to rebuild their friendship slowly. They meet for coffee occasionally, but they avoid talking about the past. Instead, they focus on the present and the future. It's not easy, but they both realize that their bond is worth fighting for. Deji, realizing that Kola and Toby are reconnecting, tries to sabotage their efforts. He hires someone to spread more lies about them, but this time Kola and Toby are ready. They confront Deji together, exposing his manipulations and forcing him to leave their lives for good. With Deji out of the picture, Kola and Toby finally begin to heal. They don't start a new business together, but they find other ways to support each other. Kola helps Toby with the technical aspects of his community projects, while Toby encourages Kola to pursue his passion for teaching. Their friendship is different now, more mature, more cautious, but it's real. As Kola and Toby sit under the old mango tree one evening, Toby asks the question that's been on both their minds. "Do you think life gives you a true friend twice?" Kola smiles and replies, "Maybe not twice. But if you're lucky, you get a second chance with the first one." Kola and Toby decided it was time to introduce their families to each other. Kola's wife Ada had heard countless stories about Toby over the years, but she had never met him. Toby's wife, Funmi, was equally curious about Kola. The two families arranged a dinner at Kola's house. The evening started awkwardly with the children, Kola's 8-year-old son, David, and Toby's 7-year-old daughter, Grace, eyeing each other shyly. But as the night progressed, the ice began to melt. Ada and Funmi discovered they had a lot in common, from their love for gardening to their shared frustration with their husband's occasional stubbornness. By the end of the night, the children were playing together, and the adults were laughing like old friends. It was a small but significant step toward rebuilding the bond between the two families. Encouraged by the success of the dinner, Kola and Toby planned a weekend getaway for their families. They rented a cozy cabin in the countryside, far from the noise and stress of the city. The trip was a chance for everyone to relax and get to know each other better. On the first evening, as the adults sat around a bonfire, Kola and Toby shared stories from their high school days, much to the amusement of their wives and children. The next day they went hiking, with Toby carrying Grace on his shoulders and Kola helping David identify different types of trees. It was during this trip that Kola and Toby realized how much they had missed not just each other, but the simple joys of life. The weekend ended with a promise to make the getaway an annual tradition. Despite their efforts, not everything was smooth sailing. One afternoon, Ada and Funmi had a disagreement over a school project their children were working on together. Ada felt Funmi was being too controlling, while Funmi thought Ada wasn't taking the project seriously. The tension between the wives spilled over to Kola and Toby, who found themselves caught in the middle. For a moment, it felt like the old wounds were reopening. But this time, Kola and Toby handled the situation differently. Instead of letting the conflict escalate, they sat down with their wives and had an honest conversation. They acknowledged that misunderstandings were inevitable, but emphasized the importance of communication and compromise. By the end of the discussion, Ada and Funmi apologized to each other, and the families emerged stronger than before. Over time, the two families settled into a comfortable rhythm. They celebrated birthdays together, attended each other's children's school events, and even went on joint vacations. Kola and Toby made a conscious effort to keep their friendship separate from business, focusing instead on supporting each other as fathers, husbands, and friends. One evening, as they sat on Kola's porch watching their children play, Toby turned to Kola and said, "You know, I used to think we lost everything when the business fell apart. But now I realize we gained something even more valuable." Kola nodded, understanding exactly what Toby meant. Their friendship had evolved into something deeper and more meaningful, enriched by the love and support of their families. One evening, Kola and Toby found themselves alone at Toby's house after their families had gone to bed. They sat in the dimly lit living room, sipping tea and reminiscing about the past. The conversation turned to their friendship, and for the first time, they openly acknowledged how much they had lost. "Do you think we'll ever be as close as we were before?" Kola asked, his voice tinged with sadness. Toby sighed and replied, "I don't know. Maybe not in the same way. But that doesn't mean what we have now isn't valuable." They both knew the truth. The old version of their friendship, with its unshakable trust and boundless optimism, was gone forever. What remained was a quieter, more cautious bond, shaped by the scars of betrayal and the wisdom of experience. The strength of their renewed friendship was put to the test when Toby faced a personal crisis. His mother fell seriously ill, and the medical bills were overwhelming. Toby, who had always been the strong one, found himself struggling to cope. Kola stepped in without hesitation, offering financial support and helping Toby navigate the complexities of the healthcare system. Ada and Funmi also rallied around the family, providing emotional support and taking care of the children. During this difficult time, Kola and Toby realized how much they still needed each other. But they also recognized that their relationship had changed. The unconditional trust they once had was now tempered by a quiet understanding of each other's flaws and limitations. One day, Kola received a letter from Deji, who was now serving time in prison for fraud. In the letter, Deji apologized for his actions and asked for forgiveness. Kola was torn. Part of him wanted to let go of the anger, but another part couldn't forget the damage Deji had caused. He shared the letter with Toby, and together they debated whether to respond. In the end, they decided to write back, not to forgive Deji, but to release themselves from the burden of resentment. As they sealed the letter, Kola said, "He took so much from us, but he didn't take everything. We're still here, aren't we? Toby nodded, but the shadow of Deiji's betrayal lingered, a reminder of how fragile even the strongest bonds could be. As the years passed, Kola and Toby grew older, and their lives became quieter. Their children were now teenagers, and their wives had built a close friendship of their own. One afternoon, as they sat under the old mango tree at their high school, now gnarled and weathered like them, Kola turned to Toby and said, "You know, I've been thinking. True friendship is like a rare gem. You don't realize how precious it is until it's almost gone." Toby smiled and replied, "And sometimes even when you get it back, it's not the same. But that doesn't mean it's not worth holding on to." They both knew they had been given a rare gift, a second chance, and they were determined not to take it for granted. The story concludes with Kola and Toby attending their high school reunion. As they walked through the familiar halls, they were struck by how much had changed, and how much had stayed the same. They reconnected with old classmates, some of whom had also experienced the ebb and flow of friendship over the years. At the end of the evening, Kola and Toby stood outside the school, looking up at the stars. "Do you think life gives you a true friend twice?" Toby asked, echoing the question they had pondered so many times. Kola thought for a moment and replied, "Maybe not twice. But if you're lucky, you get to keep the first one, even if it's not the same." They shook hands, a gesture that symbolized both their enduring bond and the distance that would always remain between them. As they walked away, they knew they had been given a rare and precious gift, one that could never be fully restored, but would always be cherished.